and welcome to Pathways to Healing, the Perfect Step podcast. We are your hosts, Cody Norman
and Logan Fry, paralysis recovery specialist at the Perfect Step, also known as TPS.
We are not doctors and are not prescribing anything, as this podcast is for informational purposes and should not be considered legal advice.
We are, however, sharing knowledge and experience that we have gained from working for years with clients in the paralysis community.
The guests on this podcast will include either experts in their respective fields or individuals sharing their unique experiences with paralysis.
Suggestions and advice that we share may affect each person differently, as not one injury or diagnosis is the exact same.
We are hopeful that the outreach of this podcast will allow us to give help and guidance for individuals suffering from paralysis.
We understand that this spread of knowledge is important and takes an entire community coming together.
Because of this, we would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors who have made this possible.
On episode 7 of Pathways to Healing, we interviewed AJ Velichko. AJ is a quadriplegic who suffers from Brown-Sequard syndrome and is a frequent visiting client at TPS.
AJ shares his unique recovery experiences with Brown-Sequard, international travel with the spinal cord injury, recovery processes and therapies across the nation and world, as well as his aspirations of becoming a pilot with a spinal cord injury. Stay tuned on AJ's Pathways to Healing.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pathways to Healing, AJ. Thanks for being on the podcast today.
Thank you, Logan. It's good to be here.
Thanks.
Thank you, Cody.
Of course. It's good to have you on. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day and coming on and giving us all of your insight. Why don't you start off by giving just a generic background of AJ Velichko? Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, that's perfect. Velichko.
That's pretty good. Pretty good.
So I was born in 1987 in the Caribbean on a small island called St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
For those of us who aren't good at math, how old are you?
I am almost 37. Yeah.
Thank you.
And that was kind of a very telling thing about the kind of person I would be. I've lived in a lot of places. I've traveled a lot. And after St. Thomas, I lived in Florida. And then I lived in Ohio. And then I lived in Pennsylvania. And then Illinois. And then Virginia. And then Russia. And back to the States again.
Wow. Out of all these places that you've been to, what place do you feel like you left your mark the most?
Probably Pennsylvania. I lived there the longest.
Tell us a little bit about Pennsylvania. How was Pennsylvania impactful for you?
What years were you there? Like
I was
grade
in
school or
Pennsylvania from 1999 until 2018. Yeah, so
Wow.
from 5th grade until after college.
Where'd you go to college?
First, I went to Bucks County Community College in Pennsylvania. Then I went to Cairn University. And then I went to a university in Russia. Yeah.
What'd you study in all?
First, I studied communication performance in Bucks, and then I studied Bible ministry at Cairn University. And then I studied Russian language in Russia.
Wow.
Are you fluent in Russian?
I'm pretty good, but a little rusty since I've been back.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love languages and different cultures. It's one of my favorite things.
Are you just bilingual or do you know other languages?
I studied a bunch, but I'd never used them, so I've forgotten a lot.
What did you study?
Italian, Spanish, French, Arabic, and Russian.
What was the hardest?
I would say Russian is the hardest.
Hmm.
The grammar is really difficult. Now I'm studying Polish as well.
Wow. And what is your ethnic background? Like, where are your parents from?
On my mom's side, I'm Irish. On my dad's side, Italian and Russian and Austrian.
Okay.
So that's where the last name comes from.
Very
Really,
cool.
really cool.
Yeah.
Last name that's hard for us to pronounce.
Yeah, when I lived there, I was really happy because everybody could pronounce it better than I could.
That's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
What in your education led you to have such a fascination in language and want to learn more about all these different languages?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's my education. I'd say it's where I lived. You know, I was born on an island, and I was a minority. It's mostly East Indian Black people who live in the Caribbean. So my world was a world of diversity as soon as I was born. And living in Florida, I had friends from South America. And then moving to Pennsylvania, I had a lot of Indian friends and Spanish friends and Black friends and Russian friends and Ukrainian and all kinds of Slavic people. And I've just always had a lot of friends from other countries. So it was part of my life since I was a kid, since I was born.
Wow, that's really cool. AJ, what is your injury date and how old are you when you got injured?
I was 20 years old. It was July 2nd, 2007.
Okay.
I had just turned 20.
And you were living in Pennsylvania at the time?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
What were you doing in life? You were in college?
I was in college at the time. I had completed 1 year, and then my injury happened.
Did you immediately go back to college?
It was a year after my injury that I started going back.
Really?
Yeah, and it was only on a part-time basis.
Mm.
1 class per semester, and then 2 classes, and gradually moving up to full-time.
So either we can talk about it a little bit more, or you can give your insight. You're C4, C5, correct?
That's right.
Incomplete, but you don't necessarily present as a normal quadriplegic. You were diagnosed with Brown-Séquard, if
Yeah,
I'm pronouncing
yeah,
that right.
Brown-Séquard syndrome. Yeah, yeah. So I'm split right down the middle. On the left side of my body, I have more strength. It came back quicker, but I'm lacking a lot of sensation. I can feel touch, but some parts are more numb than others. I'm also limited in my temperature change sensation.
Mhm.
And on the right side, it's much weaker, but as far as I know, I can feel everything. So if I'm taking a shower, it's hot over here and it's cold and it's normal over here. There's no change.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's really easy to get cut or burned and not even realize it on the left side.
What did that recovery process look like for you as soon as you got injured and you went into maybe your inpatient or outpatient? What does that look like for you? How fast do you feel like the recovery aspect was during that time? How slow do you feel like it was?
Well, I started off with a halo, and I had the halo for 3 months. And the first month I was in Jefferson University Hospital just for the surgeries and medical treatment. And then I went to McGee Rehab Facility in Philadelphia. And that was an additional 3 months of medical treatment, but mostly it was for rehabilitation. So I started walking with assistance after 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And my lower body came back first. My legs to this day are still much stronger. My upper body is still very weak.
How long after you going to the hospital did they actually diagnose you with Brown-Séquard?
Probably
Séquard?
probably a couple weeks once some sensations started returning and other sensations didn't.
Mm.
Plus the strength was coming back.
In the legs
On-
first?
Yeah, on the left side. So that's when they realized that this isn't really usual.
How similar or different are your right and leg functions? Right and left leg functions?
I'd say they're pretty different. I mean, I can walk. I'm ambidextrous now. Before my injury, I was right hand dominant. Now I'm left hand dominant, but I still write with my right.
Hmm.
And yeah, I do most things with my left hand.
I think a lot of people can have opinions because, you don't present as a normal quadriplegic, but I don't think that means that your situation is necessarily any better or worse than their situation. I think it obviously comes with a lot of other factors that you have to take account for. What is something that in your experiences has been very hard to overcome, understanding that yes, you can walk, but necessarily the hand or arm function that you have isn't as strong?
Um, well, going to the grocery store, for example, if I have to bag my own groceries, I do everything much more slow. Uh, my strength is limited and my range of motion, so picking up groceries and putting them in a bag takes a lot more time than it does for other people, and then lifting the bag into the cart. And I've gotten used to it, and I've gotten used to people looking at me kind of strange because it is unusual to see.
Mm-hmm.
You don't usually see someone with a weak upper body, but not a weak lower body.
Mm.
So uh, things like that are my biggest challenge. Is just in public doing things and shaking people's hands. I use the other hand to support, and this grip is really weak. So I notice people notice that, and it's just something that I've had to get used to.
I think you're somebody who can speak to this a little bit more than maybe our first few clients who are not ambulatory. You obviously had something go on internally, and something is still, we'll use the word dysfunctional when we're talking about your nervous system. But if you look at you from afar, and we were just looking from behind, you could think that you're completely able-bodied and that there isn't something wrong. So just because that something doesn't look wrong always doesn't necessarily mean that something isn't. Is that something that you've had to experience and learn?
Yeah, sometimes people have no idea that I was injured. I've known them for months and they never pick up anything unusual. And then one day it just comes out that I was in a really bad car accident and they just get so surprised.
Mm.
They had no idea. But other people pick it up right away.
Right. Depends on the person.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Some people are more perceptive than others.
For sure. Yeah. What are some of, you feel like, milestones and achievements that you've accomplished since your injury? Let's go even all the way until now and today.
Well, walking is a big thing.
Definitely.
Yeah. I was 20 years old when the injury happened, and I just couldn't imagine myself being paralyzed for the rest of my life. So I worked really hard, and I had a lot of support, a lot of good medical care. And walking has opened up a lot of doors. Using my legs has opened up a lot of doors. I've done a lot of traveling, been to about 13 countries, and I've moved a lot. I've been to 3 universities. Those are probably the biggest ones.
Those are all awesome.
Yeah.
All great milestones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because I saw recently that you've been flying.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Have you flown to any other of those countries? Have there been short distance flights, or what's that looking like for you?
Well, let me tell you the backstory of that.
Please do.
After my injury, I was still in rehab, and I just finished a gym session. I went back to my room, and I was watching TV, and 3 commercials came on back to back, and each one had a helicopter. And I don't know what it was, but something just clicked. I want to be a pilot. I want to fly helicopters. And for years, every time a helicopter flew by, I looked up and I thought, I'm going to fly helicopters. Gradually, it turned into planes. I started thinking every time I see a small plane, I'm going to fly planes. And the last time I was here in October, I was presented with an opportunity to take some lessons at a flight school. And I went for it. You know, it's been 17 years since I've had this dream. And it's possible. I found out, even though my arms are weak, it's not that difficult to steer a plane, a small plane. So I went for it, and I haven't flown to another country. I'm still a student, and it takes a lot of time to become a licensed pilot. But I'm on my way.
You're still a student right now?
Yeah.
Where are you going to school at right now?
It's at Cable Airport.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So what was that? What was the starting of that process like? Like you said you had this opportunity to go to flight school. How did that come about?
A friend of mine is a pilot, and he took me to the Cable Airport. They have a restaurant, and we just went to lunch. And I said, hey, do you mind if we go look at these planes? There's planes parked everywhere. So we walked around, and I expressed my interest in my backstory of wanting to be a pilot. And he took me into the flight school, and we just signed up for some flight simulation lessons. And after that, I had my first flight in December. And then I just had another one yesterday.
How many simulations did you have to go through before you were able to go through your first flight?
Well, I've done 4. They're about an hour each. And you don't have to complete a number of flight simulations before you can actually fly. But you do have to complete a number of flight simulations before you can get your license. Mm-hmm. So you've got to go to flight school, to ground school, get all the technical information, because pilot speak is like another language. You have to do a certain amount of flight simulations, and then you have to have a whole bunch of hours of actually flying a plane, and then a solo flight.
So add that to your resume of languages that you've been learning.
Yeah, pilot. I haven't started the ground school yet. I've just done the flight simulators and a couple flights.
And when you first went to do that initial flight, is it you're in the main cockpit and somebody else is with you? Does the other individual who is essentially sitting behind you also have control over the plane, or are you the only one who has that
So
control?
I practiced in a Cessna 172, so the seats are side by side, and there's two yokes,
Mhm.
two steering wheels, and there's a back seat for any extra passengers or luggage. So the yoke, if I'm turning it, the other one turns at the same time. So
Mm.
you can easily switch back and forth between the instructor and myself.
Mm.
I'm definitely not capable of flying a plane on my own yet. I haven't taken off or landed. I can only steer and do some of the basic controls.
It sounds like you're on the right track to get it there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually have a fear of heights and a
Really?
fear of falling. Yesterday flying was really turbulent, and that was a little intimidating for me.
Yeah.
But I believe in facing your fears. You can't really be the fullest you that you can be if you're not facing your fears.
I love that.
Good for you. I myself have a fear of planes, and there's no shot. You
Yeah.
couldn't pay me enough money to get in one of those little cargo planes.
Yeah.
No shot. So that's amazing that you're willing to face your fears in that sense and overcome, prosper, and do something very amazing. Is your long-term goal to be able to solo fly your own plane?
Yeah, I would like to get a license and be able to do that.
The Be Perfect Foundation is not just a name, it's a promise. A promise to individuals living with paralysis that they are not alone in their journey. Founded by Hal Hargrave Jr. in 2007, after his own life-altering accident, we are a nonprofit 501c3 organization dedicated to providing direct financial and emotional aid. Inspired by a quote from the movie Friday Night Lights, we believe that being perfect is about doing everything you can, especially for yourself, your family, and your friends. With nearly $10 million raised and a 100% volunteer staff, your support goes directly to those in need. We assist with medical supplies, wheelchairs, home adaptations, and exercise-based therapy programs. Our board of directors receives no salary, ensuring that almost every dollar donated makes a real impact. Visit BePerfectFoundation.org to donate or learn how you can get involved. The Be Perfect Foundation, changing perceptions daily.
What are some other long-term goals that you have? Maybe it's physically, maybe it's, a career opportunity.
I hope to get more function back in my arms, more strength.
Awesome.
That would be really nice and convenient.
Hmm.
I've lived 17 years without having full motion, so I can do it. We have to adapt to any situation, and I've learned how to do that, but I would like to be stronger.
So that's what you've been working on currently at TPS, is working on upper body strength.
Yeah.
And what else? What other, kind of give us a little glimpse of other exercises that you've been doing?
I've been doing the lower body too, working on my gait. I walk with a limp. My right side is weaker, so I tend to not pick up my leg enough when I'm walking, and that's something we're working on. Main focus is upper body, but also focused on lower body, walking better, walking more correctly.
How'd you find TPS in the first place?
My sister is dating a guy whose parents sit on the board of Be Perfect.
There you go. Wow.
So it was a family tie.
Small world.
And they invited me to come here and get some training.
Nice, very nice. You have mentioned all of the travel that you've been able to do and all the different experiences you've been able to have. Have you done exercise-based therapies or rehab or anything like that in other countries?
I've never done anything specialized, just regular
working out.
Yeah, adaptive working out, because I can't do most things.
Mm-hmm. What about in states? Have you done anything else? I mean, obviously you did your rehab in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that was the main thing. I did regular gymming. I had a personal trainer, but he wasn't specialized in my injury. So he adapted as best as he could, but I hadn't had any special training since 2008, I guess.
What were your expectations when you came to TPS and you saw the facility and what everything looked like? Did it look similar to that type of personal training, normal gym atmosphere? Or, I knew you knew somebody that already has an understanding of what TPS is like. So what were some things that you saw differences in?
Well, there's a lot of tables everywhere that people can lay down, and that's not typical in a normal gym.
Right.
And also everybody's in a wheelchair. You don't often see that at a regular gym.
Absolutely.
It's a nice environment. I love the environment because it's people that understand me, people that have gone through the same things that I've gone through, and the trainers know how to handle our physical limitations.
I think that's been a common theme of clients that we've had on this podcast is, I think Adrian said, in a world where nothing is tailored to somebody with a neurological injury, this is a place that is exactly that. It's tailored to people suffering from paralysis, whether it be neurological injury or diagnosis. It's something that is specialized in that. Have you experienced, you haven't, obviously you kind of said that you haven't experienced anything like that, but what has been the closest second? I kind of mentioned how like TPS is specialized for
People with
people,
injuries.
with injuries. Have you, when I guess going through all the different traveling explorations that you've gone through, have you had anything like that, or has it just been all kind of trials and tribulations? Have you had other people or situations come up where you're like, oh, like they accommodated for this? They made sure that somebody in this situation has an ability to also do this, or has everything that you've experienced been, like you said, we have to figure it out in a way? Has it been all like that, or have you had other experiences?
It's been a big mix. I've been to a variety of countries like India and Zambia and Southern Africa, and I've been to France. And some places are more modern and better infrastructure, and places like Zambia, the roads are just pothole after pothole after pothole, and not really well equipped for people with disabilities. I remember being in Zambia and seeing a guy in a wheelchair on the side of the road, and I thought he's not going very far because of the way the roads are. But there are other parts of Africa that are really equipped for people with injuries, and there are plenty of places around the world that are equipped for people with injuries.
What are some places in Africa that you went to that was super equipped? What are some states, or not states, I'm sorry, but countries and cities that you went to?
Yeah, in Africa, I would say it's not very handicap accessible. In Zambia, the place that I was at.
Got it.
But South Africa is a better place.
What about other countries? You said France, any European countries,
India.
Russia. What if you had to, with all of your experiences, because I think you're somebody who, while you may not be in a chair, because you've had exposure to this community, you may have more insight or be more deliberate when you're looking to see, oh, this place had a ramp that was accessible, or this place, they only had steps that they weren't accessible, because you have the ability to give more attention to that because you've been through it. What places have you noticed, or if you had to give somebody advice, give them 5 places where you're like, it'll be accessible and you'll have a good experience traveling there?
I would say England is really accessible.
Mm.
Canada is really accessible. Russia is accessible in some parts, but other parts not so much. I was living in a city called Novosibirsk, and it's in the middle of Siberia, and it snows all through winter, and it's just snow and ice, and it's very slippery. And I'm not in a chair, but I was having a hard time moving around sometimes because it's icy and it's slippery, and I fell a lot.
Mm.
I fell about 10 times in Russia, and because I don't have quick reaction time, I just fell like a tree, just right on my face or on my ribs or my arm. I had a lot of injuries when I was in Russia.
Wow.
So moving around in Siberia in a chair would be pretty tough in the winter, not in the summertime. There are ramps. You can get into the metro, and maybe getting into a bus would be a little more difficult, but there's Uber. And if you can get into a car, you can get around. Places like Moscow, much more accessible.
That's something that I think we live with a lot of privilege here that, Californians don't really think about too much, is how accessible things are because of the weather.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we don't have to battle the snow or the ice. And not only do those things make things harder for able-bodied individuals, but, somebody that's in a chair, somebody that deals with a disability like yourself, it's going to make it, even harder.
Yeah.
So it's great that you're able to find ways to get through that, but also to overcome them and to make sure that when you travel, it is something that is accessible and correct for you,
Yeah.
and somewhere that you feel comfortable to do that.
Yeah. And even if you can walk, I went to Rome. Everything is cobblestone, and it's old cobblestone, so it's very smooth and very slippery.
Mm.
So that's something to consider too. You might have roads, but sometimes they're cobblestone roads. It's difficult to move around. Yeah.
So through all this traveling that you've done, has there been any sort of maybe relationships that you've held on to, or relationships that you weren't able to hold on to with family, friends, maybe a girlfriend or somebody that made it kind of harder for you since you've been traveling so much?
Yeah, I have friends all over the world. I'm fortunate to say, I had a girlfriend in Russia a long time ago, and we broke up because it's difficult to maintain a distance so far. It's difficult to maintain a relationship with such great distance.
Mm.
But we remain good friends since then. We still talk quite often.
Awesome.
And with the technology we have now with the internet, it's so easy to keep in touch.
Right.
Yeah. Can't keep in touch with everybody, but I do have friends in a lot of places.
Social media probably helps with that. I know you're
Definitely. Pretty active on social
pretty
media.
active, so
Yeah.
that you can touch people all around the world with that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you have particular things with your social media that you like to document? Like, are you somebody who you like to document your recovery, or your, like you said, now getting into being a pilot, documenting your travel? Is that something that?
Yeah, I document a lot of stuff. I love taking videos and photos. It's something I've liked to do since I was a kid. It's kind of a hobby. And you guys have seen me in the gym. I'm always taking videos and recording my workouts, and it's really helpful to see the progress.
Mm.
And even putting it on social media gives me kind of motivation to keep working instead of keeping it all to myself. Like I said earlier about facing fears, when I'm working out, I don't look like the man. I don't look like a beast, but putting it out there just kind of gets rid of that feeling of making like I feel weak sometimes. I feel so weak, but we can't think that way. We can't think like I'm injured. I'm poor me.
You're finding a way to be vulnerable.
Yeah, being vulnerable is important for healing, I think.
I think you just opened up a really good door, because there's so many, influencers on social media, or people that may portray a certain type of fitness or exercise, or hey, if you're not this big or this strong, or look this good while working out, sometimes it may cause a little bit of fluctuation. But with you, and that's a really good point that you state, because you should be proud of your success no matter who you are, no matter what exercises you're doing, whatever, no matter what you look like or what ability you have. The fact that you're doing those things and moving your body and staying healthy is just fantastic in general.
Yeah. I remember being in a regular gym one time and looking at all the big, muscly people. And I just had a revelation. I'm the strongest guy in this gym. Not one of these people had to learn to walk from scratch after being a baby. No, none of these people as a grown man had to learn how to function from after having a broken neck. And that really brought a lot of freedom to just be me and work harder. I was really timid in the gym before that. I didn't want to look like a puny guy. But then after that, I just felt like I can do this. I can be strong. I can be the best that I can be now that I have that thought.
No, we see you, man. We see you getting after in the gym over here, and we notice your hard work, and also just you talking about your milestones, your achievements. Those are some things that we had no clue about, but I want you to share those more often, because it's a subtle flex, and that's really cool.
Thanks.
Very cool. You talk about when you went to the quote, like normal gym. How is that experience different here? Do you get a different sense of motivation when you see other people who have gone through that similar experience? Maybe not exactly the same, but a similar experience.
Yeah.
Does that change how you go through a workout? Does it give you a different type of motivation?
I would say it's really good for your mental state, because connecting with people who get you, who've been through the same thing, really helps. one of the biggest problems that I've had is I feel like people don't understand. There have been days where I thought, I wish everybody I knew could experience my limitations for one day.
Mm.
I would never want anyone to break their neck. But just to have that connection where people get you is so important. And being here at TPS has allowed that to happen.
Do you feel like you've made some friendships at TPS with maybe some of the clients, some of the trainers, built some relationships?
Definitely. Yeah. All the trainers, you guys are so friendly and encouraging, and the clients are awesome as well.
Well, you open that door for everybody too. You know,
you
coming in.
You being outgoing, like you said, it really allows us to not have to do too much. We don't have to try to get you out of your shell. You kind of doing that in a sense for us allows us to just treat you like another person in here.
Yeah.
Something you touched on a bit was how the trainers also give that sense of acceptance almost, or like, we get you.
Yeah.
Which is ironic, and I think Logan and I can attest to this just a little bit. It's, people will kind of ask, like, well, how are you guys supposed to get it? You're not, you've never gone through the experience. You've never had an accident or had a diagnosis that has caused you to live what I've lived or go through that same thing. But I think, being around it so much and being students of the community has not allowed us to give empathy, but we can, give some sympathy, and we understand a little bit more.
Yeah.
Has that kind of been your experience?
Yeah, I feel like I can connect with you guys really well because you see this every day and you have trained. You haven't gone through it the way we have, but you are going through it in a way. So I feel definitely a strong connection to you guys.
And we're always trying to learn.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that have gone kinesiology degrees or exercise science degrees, and sometimes in certain colleges, there's not a whole lot of awareness being spread on spinal cord injuries or on paralysis in general. So when we came to this facility and we went through our training process, it was really eye-opening to learn about all these different types of neurological disorders and what people like yourself go through. A lot of those experiences have been really valuable, and I feel like I've learned so much. Just speaking of you being outgoing, just today, you came into the building, you said hi to about 10 people before you even came in. So that's just another example of what kind of person that you are.
Are you or a loved one living with paralysis and searching for a path to recovery and hope? Look no further than The Perfect Step. Our unique exercise-based recovery programs have helped clients with conditions like spinal cord injury, stroke, Parkinson's, and more. With our approach, many clients experience improved function, reduced medication, and even freedom from wheelchairs. But we're not just a program, we're a community of support. You'll meet peers who understand your journey, along with specialists dedicated to your recovery. Visit us today at theperfectstep.com. The Perfect Step, where recovery begins.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Can you share any personal challenges or obstacles you've overcome that you feel like have further influenced your journey? This could be any type of obstacles. It doesn't need to be related to your injury. But is there anything that keeps you going, that keeps pushing you forward?
My faith, I would say, is the biggest thing for me. Yeah, I'm a Christian. I have a strong relationship with Jesus, and that has been a growing thing since I was a small kid.
Did that fluctuate or change at all before and after the accident?
Yeah, I'd say after my injury, it definitely boomed. I tell people when I was lying in a bed in the hospital paralyzed, all I could do was look up. So I spent a lot of time in prayer, talking to God, of course, questioning why did this happen? And then, slowly gaining acceptance. We can't really have all the answers. We can't answer all the whys. And that's okay. But just having that relationship, like I mentioned earlier about having a relationship with peers and connecting with people, connecting with God is super important and super helpful and just the most valuable thing that I have.
That is one of the main reasons, if not the reason, you've been to so many countries too, is because of missionary work, correct?
Yeah.
Would you mind elaborating on that just a little bit?
Yeah, since I moved so many times as a kid, I felt very comfortable being in other places. And then growing up in the church, I went on summer mission trips with my youth group until I was a young adult. And then I started going on overseas trips. People started inviting me on overseas trips. And then at my second college, I got a Bible degree, and I studied all kinds of ministry, including foreign ministry. And I decided I want to be a missionary. So I ended up applying to a global Christian humanitarian organization called Operation Mobilization. And I wanted to serve in Russia. So I found this place because I was going to serve in Russia. And they hired me, and I ended up moving to Russia with this organization. And I'd been to another number of countries with other organizations. And actually, I'm moving to Poland soon.
Really?
Yeah, for my next mission.
Very cool.
Yeah,
When do you leave?
and sometime in the next couple months is the plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to continue the flight journey there?
We'll see. Who knows?
Is it different there?
Yeah, it's different. Well, it's a different language for one, which makes it harder. Pilot language in
that.
English is hard. I'd have to learn in Polish. We'll see.
You talk about language a lot. What have you, so for those who don't know, when you do a lot of this missionary work, you're a teacher, correct? You teach especially the English language.
I teach English, so yeah.
You mentioned how Russian was the hardest language to learn. What's harder, learning Russian or teaching somebody English?
I would say for me it was learning Russian because the grammar is really hard. And actually, while teaching English, I realized English is a really hard language. We don't think about it too much because we speak it every day. Since we were toddlers, we've been speaking English. But once people start asking questions like, why do you say it like this? I was like, I don't actually know. So now I'm taking a TESOL course to become certified so I can answer those why questions.
Really cool.
Yeah.
What are you taking that through? That course?
It's an online course that is internationally recognized, ITT, and it will allow me to teach almost anywhere in the world.
Very nice. Is there anything else that you taught in Russia besides English?
I taught the Bible.
The Bible?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Did some evangelism.
Okay.
Very cool. With all of your different experiences, have you had a favorite place where you like to live?
Russia is my favorite,
What is it?
to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
If somebody's going to Russia for a week, what do they need to see? What do they need to do?
I would say Moscow and St. Petersburg. They're very tourist friendly, amazing cities, very beautiful, and probably not now. Probably not now. Is not a good time to go.
Yeah.
We all know why.
Yeah.
But any other time, I'd say go to Moscow. It's incredible.
Adaptable?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'd say yes.
Okay. Very cool.
So what's also influenced your passion to travel the world? I know it's been missionary work, as we just spoke of. Maybe it's your love to travel as well. But what are some other things that influence you to want to go meet all these different people, experience all these different cultures?
Probably starting from when I was born, living on an island, tropical island with people who look different from me, and just all the friends I had growing up were from different countries. It's just a part of me. It seems strange to not be in a diverse atmosphere.
Will you continue to travel to a plethora of different countries over the span of your life?
Yeah, I anticipate that. It seems that's been my path, so I can't see it going any other way. And if it does,
when you leave the States, what do you miss the most?
For me, when I was in Russia specifically, I was in Russia for a year and a half, so that's probably the best reference. It was speaking English. The communicating in your native language is the hardest thing to let go. I did find people who spoke English, but I had to speak Russian every day. And I love Russia. I love the language, but it's hard. It's really hard. So not being able to understand people and not being able to be understood for me is the most challenging. And I anticipate it's going to be the same way when I'm in Poland.
Yeah. What advice would you give somebody that is in that situation and they go to a different country and have no idea how to speak the language, what advice would you give them as far as means of transportation or just living or also just visiting that country?
I would say really pay attention to what people are saying and don't be afraid when people start talking to you. That was a big problem for me in Russia. Was I became kind of introverted. People would speak to me on the bus and at the grocery store and on the street, and I just would just say something that wasn't correct. They would ask me a question and I would say da or yes or no, which I didn't even know what they were asking me. I would just say something just so they would leave me alone. I would say really try to pay attention and learn the language as best as you can and not be afraid to look stupid. I think the best way to learn a language is to learn it badly. So like when you're learning your native language when you're a baby, you speak English, for example, you speak English badly. 2-year-olds are bad at speaking English. It's really cute, but they mispronounce every word. Their grammar is terrible. They don't know a whole lot of words, but they're still speaking the language and they're still communicating and they're getting better as they go. So even as an adult, I think the best way to speak a language is like a 2-year-old. Just badly. Speak it badly.
And just keep doing it.
And you'll get repetition. Better. And that's what I learned in Russia. And I did get better.
It's quality advice. Also coincides with overcoming fears.
Yeah.
Like what you mentioned.
Yeah, right? Fear is such a crippling thing. More crippling than a spinal cord injury, I think.
Wow. In what way?
Well, I could have just broken my neck and not worked my butt off to get better because I was afraid of, just being afraid. And then I could have just stayed home and not gone to other countries, even though I walked very poorly. And I could have just said, no, I'm handicapped. I can't fly a plane. Just telling myself I can't would have really limited all the opportunities that I've had and all the things that I've done.
What would you tell somebody that maybe currently they're a little fearful of going out into the world, but so instead of telling them don't be afraid, what are some other tips that you may give somebody to really make that next leap into getting out there?
I would say having a community is really helpful for getting over anything. Relationships are so important. I've mentioned that a couple of times. Having someone who can cheer you on is really helpful. So when I was in the hospital, I had a lot of family come and support me. A lot of friends come and support me. Having support is, I think, a really big first step. And if you don't know a lot of people, online communities help as well. I think online is less scary than in person for whatever reason, because you're not face to face. So if you're an introvert, you don't want to make the step to make friends in person, make friends online. That's a good first step.
So download a Facebook.
Yeah, download Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah,
definitely.
Are you in the retail, restaurant, hospitality, or petroleum industry? Looking for a trusted partner with your multi-site remodel, refresh, or tech integration needs? Look no further. Apex Imaging Services is your complete solution provider. With over 7 decades of experience, we're experts in everything from general contracting to cutting-edge tech solutions. Visit apeximagingservices.com to learn how we can transform your business, increase efficiency, and elevate your brand. Apex Imaging Services. Your vision, our expertise.
What is one tip that you would give, not to somebody traveling, but who has just gone through a neurological injury or diagnosis and has just become a part of this community? What is one tip that you would give them? Would it be the same thing of, don't be afraid, seek failure, those types of things? Or do you think it's different? And how have your experiences of traveling and seeking out that nature of facing your fear along or coincided or been different than you facing your fear of overcoming things post injury?
Sorry, that was a lot.
That was a lot. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
To make it simple, what advice would you give to somebody who just had an injury? And then for you and your experiences, how has facing your fears with traveling and flying a plane been similar or different than overcoming getting back into the world post injury?
I think, flying was a almost 17-year dream. It didn't start until 17 years after. It wasn't, for me, it wasn't immediate. I think that's a big step. I think flying is a big step. Um, Making new friends is a smaller step, in my opinion. For me, it's not too hard to make friends because of my background, moving so much, I had to make new friends all the time.
Mm.
It was either take the step that other people wouldn't and take the step that other people wouldn't and then have friends, or just, wait for someone else to do it, to approach me,
Mm.
and probably not have any new friends.
So having your eye on those short-term goals, but also having your eye on those long-term goals as well.
Yeah. Like I said, every time I saw a helicopter or plane in the sky, I would look up and say, I'm going to fly. I didn't stop believing. And with my dream to go to Russia, I became interested in Russia when I was 19. I wanted to move to Russia after my first trip there in 2016. And then it was about 6 years later that I actually moved there. But I always had the vision. I always had the goal. Having a vision is really important. There's a Bible verse that says, the people perish who have no vision. Without a vision, the people perish.
It's almost like your vision, or having a long-term goal, and then you have all these short-term goals that you can accomplish on the way to that long-term goal, so you don't
Yeah.
get discouraged.
Yeah.
Being able to accomplish something, face a fear every now and then, so that when you do get the opportunity to face that long-term one,
Yeah.
you're going to have a little bit more success.
We were created for greatness, every single person. And we have to have a dream to drive us. We have to have a purpose. Without a purpose, we just shrivel up. Our full potential is not realized.
I couldn't agree more with that statement.
Yeah.
I couldn't either. I think something that a lot of people would get insight from is, say somebody had a purpose and then they had a neurological injury, like an SCI. How would you give advice to them about finding a new purpose? If you had the purpose, you knew what it was since you were 3 years old, and then something happens like that that's so drastic and it changes your entire life, that purpose is no longer feasible. How would you say or suggest that they go about that?
I would say, what are your likes? What are your interests? And I wouldn't discount anything because of an injury, unless it's, being a, no, you know what? I won't even say that. If your dream is to be an Olympic runner and then you break your back, it could happen. It could happen. It might not, but it could.
Yeah.
But it's also important to realize, are you okay? I have a broken back. Am I still really motivated to run in the Olympics? I actually was. I wanted to run in the Olympics. I was a runner before. I was really athletic before my injury. And I'm probably not going to run in the Olympics now. And I'm not upset about that at all, because I have new goals. I would say, what are your interests? For me, it was language and different cultures and flying. And I just changed directions. So there's a woman named Joni Erickson. She's a complete quad, but she's traveling the world, and she's an amazing motivational and public Christian speaker.
For those that don't know, a complete quad is somebody that is a quadriplegic with a complete spinal cord injury.
Yeah.
Love that. That's awesome. AJ, what is one place that you want to go to that you haven't been to yet? It's probably not a lot on there because you've been so many places. And what's one spot that you would never go to, even if someone paid you some money to go?
I would love to go to Japan.
Hmm.
I love anime and Japanese culture.
Do you now?
Yeah.
What's
I
your
know,
favorite show?
you do too. I love Demon Slayer, and lifelong Dragon Ball Z fan.
Ooh, okay.
Almost lifelong, since I was a young teenager.
Okay.
I love shows where people are on a journey and getting stronger and getting better and doing good for other people. And Demon Slayer really shows that.
For sure. You excited for the new arc?
I am.
Yes.
Can't wait. Yeah.
And what's one place that you would never go to?
I like cold weather climates. And even though I was born on a tropical island, I don't love being in tropical places. So probably not Southeast Asia. It's really hot and sticky and really beautiful, and a lot of people love going there. But I probably won't because of the climate. I like being in the cold. I lived in Siberia, so
Yeah.
I like colder places.
It's probably pretty cold there.
It's
right?
cold.
Just a
Yeah,
little bit.
it's cold.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just negative degrees.
it's always negative.
How did that cold weather affect your body?
I was bundled up pretty good, so I didn't have any problems. There was one day I remember it was minus 40. I was on a lake, frozen lake called Lake Baikal. It's the deepest lake in the world. It was about minus 40 and really windy, and I didn't wear snow pants. I just had jeans. So that made it really difficult to function. I was really cold. But I never had any joint problems aside from that.
Do you have any nerve pain at all?
Yeah,
Any of
I
those?
have pain often in my neck and my left arm.
Neck and my shoulders.
Yeah, since I was injured, I've had it.
What does your nerve pain feel like? How would you describe that to somebody that doesn't know what nerve pain is?
I would say it feels like acid coursing through my veins. Yeah, and it's usually pretty brief, but sometimes it lingers.
What helps that? What helps relieve the pain?
I don't take any medication.
Yeah.
And I just find it goes away. I don't do anything for it really. Massaging helps. Massaging does help, but aside from that, I just handle it.
AJ, what has been your greatest educational resource about paralysis since your injury? Let's say besides your inpatient, outpatient centers, even besides the place of TPS, what have been some resources that you've come by that you feel like have educated you more about your injury?
There's a lot of great stuff online, a lot of great stuff on YouTube. YouTube is a great resource for almost any topic. You can hear people's personal stories, and you can hear people who are well-studied medical professionals. I would say YouTube.
Do you have anything in specific, any channels or people that you watch that you would like to promote?
No, there's no one I can really think of offhand, but
Yeah.
just type in spinal cord injuries or something like that, and you'll find something.
TPS.
TPS.
Yeah.
Big shout out to TPS. It's an incredible resource, and I couldn't be more blessed to be a part of this.
Well, the last question we have is if somebody is kind of on the verge of starting an exercise-based program or coming to TPS for the first time, what would you tell them?
Pay attention to all the exercises you're given and do them at home if you can. Because I was here from October to December, and then I live in Virginia now, just visiting again. And I didn't do all of the exercises that I was given here. I did exercise, but since I was not with you guys every day, sometimes I was lazy, and I feel like it set me back a little bit. So I would say if you're coming here and exercising, do it at home. Do it at home as much as you can, because hard work pays off. Not doing anything doesn't pay off.
Kind of said it better myself,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you've experienced this, but when you do an exercise here and then you go and do it at home, you get really good at it, and then we can do something else here, and then you'll see a gradual progression with that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, AJ, thank you so much for giving all of us your insight and sharing your experiences and just telling your story.
It's been my pleasure.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, I
AJ.
appreciate you guys.
Thank you, man. You're an inspiration. You provide hope to so many people. I mean, more than you even know. Clients, not just clients, but people that work here, people that are watching this podcast, somebody that just sees you from a far distance and seeing how great your recovery has been. So I want to say thank you for that.
Thank you, Logan. That means a lot to me. I appreciate the words of encouragement. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Pathways to Healing, the Perfect Step podcast. We hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did.
If you found today's episode to be valuable, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, share, and feel free to leave a review by clicking the link in the description below.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or topics you'd like for us to cover in upcoming episodes, You can go to our website under the tab Pathways to Healing and fill out the form.
We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another engaging conversation giving insight into the paralysis community.
Until then, keep inspiring, stay resilient, and roll on.
These are your hosts, Cody Norman
And Logan Fry.
signing off.